created the Speech Awards in 2001 in support of Race Relations Day. The Baha'is continue to coordinate the awards with the purpose of giving young people a voice in the national conversation about race relations. I'd like to acknowledge the New Zealand Police, who have been our principal sponsors since 2008, and this year they are sponsoring the National Champions Award, Te Tohu Raukura a Motu. I'd like to thank the Human Rights Commission and the Hiri Moani Charitable Trust, who have both supported this initiative since the very beginning. Both are sponsoring special awards at the national level this year. The Office of Ethnic Communities and Speech New Zealand are also long-lasting supporters of the awards, and this year they have taken the step of sponsoring awards at the national level. Te Taura Whiri I Te Reo Māori, the Māori Language Commission, is a new sponsor this year, and they will be giving an award for the best use of Te Reo Māori, Te Tohu Manukura I Te Reo. I'd like to thank the Manukau Institute of Technology for offering their marae free of charge for hosting the Speech Awards. Unfortunately, we weren't able to take up their generous offer this year due to COVID, but we do hope to be able to hold the Race Unity Hui there later on this year. Finally, I'd like to acknowledge the design agency Studio Mark, who for the last 2 years have done all of our branding, web design, and graphic design, all free of charge. So we thank them so much for making us look so good. Tonight, we will hear speeches prepared by students in years 11, 12, and 13 on the theme, Titiro Whakamuri, Kia Anga Whakamua, to face the future, look to the past. Students must address at least 2 of the following 4 questions in their speeches. Number 1, what can we learn from our ancestors and the leaders of the past about how to eradicate racial prejudice? Number 2, how might we commemorate events in our past in a way that helps bring about justice and unity today? Number 3, what do you think race relations in Aotearoa should look like 20 years from now? And what do we need to do now in order to secure this future? Number 4, what do New Zealand's leaders and people of influence need to do in order to support young people in their efforts to improve race relations? Students must also include at least one whakatauki, proverb, or a whakatoaki, quotation in their speech. They can choose between a whakatoaki in Te Reo Māori, a quotation from the Baha'i writings, and a relevant quote or proverb from their own faith or cultural background. The top 2 speakers from tonight will go forward to the national final on Sunday, the 17th of May. In addition, tonight the judges will also be deciding which of the 2 Lower North Island speakers will become the Lower North Island Regional Champion. Tonight, our timekeeper is Paloma Reyes Palico. Our judges tonight are from the New Zealand Police, the Office of Ethnic Communities, and the Human Rights Commission. I now invite each of them to briefly introduce themselves and speak briefly about their organization's support of the Speech Awards and why they think it's of value. We will start off with our Chief Judge for tonight, Jamie Painga from the Human Rights Commission.
Kia ora no tātou, nau mai hara mai ki tēnei whakataetai, ko Jamie Painga tōku ingoa, he roi a hau I roto I te kāhui tika tangata, Māori tangata, Māori ora. So welcome everyone to tonight's semi-final. It's great to be able to do this despite the challenges that we're facing. So I really congratulate all the speakers and the Baha'i community for being able to set this up and run a really successful speech awards this year. So the Human Rights Commission has been involved in the race unity speeches for a number of years now. It's really my honour to be able to represent the Commission tonight, both as a judge and a chief judge. And it has been a real privilege in the last couple of years for us to see the students and hear their kōrero and to see them get the recognition that they deserve and the kaupapa that they're sharing. So I hope you guys all enjoy tonight. And my last thing that I just want to say to the kai kōrero, to the speakers tonight, kia maia, kia manawa nui, kia kaha, kia ora.
Kia ora tātou everyone. Ko Michael McLean tōku ingoa, National Manager Māori Pacific Ethnic Services from New Zealand Police. This is my second year in the involvement of these the Race Unity Speech Awards, and I'm very much looking forward to seeing the speeches tonight. I think it's a fantastic competition. I'm very proud that my organisation has been involved at the start, and I'm very proud that my team within New Zealand Police is got a special involvement in helping police together, because the messages that we hear from our young people and communicate and spread through these speeches are vital for our communities to learn from each other and to heal from some tragic events we've had in the last 18 months, but also look towards the future. And I think it's a key for harmonious communities looking forward is the great depth of understanding that we have, that we bring from our various backgrounds. So looking forward to tonight. I wish the speakers all the very best, and we'll talk to you later on. Thank you.
Kia ora koutou, ko Natasha Naran tōku ingoa. I am one of 3 regional community engagement managers at the Office of Ethnic Communities. The Office of Ethnic Communities is really proud to be associated with these awards. This is my first time as a judge, and I'm really looking forward to the experience. We were established in 2000 as the Office of Ethnic Affairs, which we had a name change in 2015, and we are the government's principal advisor on ethnic diversity in New Zealand. One of our outcomes is to reduce barriers, including racism and discrimination, to ensure equal outcomes and access to information and services for our ethnic communities. Our mandated ethnic communities include anyone in New Zealand from the Middle Eastern, Latin American, African, Asian, and continental European communities. And we see these awards as a really positive way to contribute to that outcome. So really, really proud to be involved, really, really proud to be sponsored.
I want to thank you all for joining us here online for the Speech Awards. We've never done anything like this before. COVID-19 is forcing us to find creative ways of staying in touch with one another. So we thank you so much for listening tonight. It's still vital that Aotearoa gets to hear what youth have to say about improving race relations. So thank you for joining us. We usually have lots of applause to encourage our speakers, and all of us on the Zoom chat are going to be doing our very best. But if you're watching on Facebook or YouTube, please feel free to post an encouraging comment, and we will share these with our speakers so that they can feel the aroha from around Aotearoa. Now it's the time we've been waiting for, to be challenged, to be inspired, and to celebrate the talent and diversity of the young people speaking tonight. It's my pleasure to introduce our first speaker, Sarah Navruz, a Year 13 student from St. Paul's Collegiate, representing Waikato.
I hate you. I hate each and every one of you. When will you learn I didn't sign the treaty? Protesting. Don't you have something better to do? Why don't you just get over it? Just vote. Just stand in an election. Just say it in English. Just me. More like me. I hate you. I hate each and every one of you. Your language, your taonga wearing, tattoo flaunting, treaty entitled, university scholarship winning. This is how it feels. This is how it feels when we fail to honour the treaty, when we fail to learn the lessons of the past, when we reap the benefits of ill-gotten gains aplenty, and then fail to accept grievance, bitterness, or recompense. This is how it feels when PE, Math, English, Social Studies, Science, RE are compulsory in the junior school. But when I mention the compulsion of Te Reo Māori, I'm required to clearly articulate and defend its value, relevance, and significance. Why am I asked to translate Te Reo Māori for the benefit of others when the same considerations are never made for me? To know me is to know my language, see the world through my eyes. Toi tū te kupu, toi tū te mana, toi tū te whenua. It is a plea to hold fast to our culture, for without land, without language, and without mana, the essence of being Māori would no longer exist, but be a skeleton that would not give justice to the full body of Māoritanga, according to Te Riro of Wanganui. Without identity, land, language, and mana, how can we stand as equals in Aotearoa? Money does not fix the pain of my people. It does not restore the land that was lost, or bring back my ancestors that were killed, or even the knowledge that they carried. Where to from here? We can't get back the whenua, and that is abundantly clear. And some of the knowledge that my people carried was lost when they were killed. So what are we left with? Reo, our language, and ahurea, our culture. For Māori, we grasp reo and ahurea because it's basically all we have left of who we are. And although we will still mourn over our losses, we need to look to the future and build on what we still have. Reo and ahurea are taonga to each and every Māori. But do you value these two the same? Do you understand the true significance? For me and my people, this is what connects us to our tupuna, history, whenua, and our people. May I suggest, as a part of the journey of standing as equals, requires the restitution of Te Reo Māori back to the vibrant living language that it once was. To know me is to know my language, see the world through my eyes. While it is one of the official languages of New Zealand, through my lens, I still notice the lack of equality it has compared to Reo Pākehā and sign language. We all watched Jacinda on the news update, along with the Health Minister of New Zealand. But there was one other person, a sign language interpreter. Now, don't get me wrong, it's amazing to see someone translate words that are spoken into sign language. But where was the translation into the other official language? There was no Te Reo Māori to be heard nor even to be seen. Why does my language miss out yet again? People wonder why Te Reo Māori is dying out. Because it comes down to the simple things. And national broadcasts all around Aotearoa, alienating Te Reo Māori, excluding my language, making me and my people feel like our language simply does not have a home here in New Zealand. How was that fair? Not even subtitles translating English into Te Reo Māori? Road signs all around New Zealand in English. Give way, entry only, exit only. Imagine this, a stop sign. It is still red and still has 8 sides. But instead of just saying stop, it also said kāwhi. Now that sounds equal to me. I believe in order for reo and ahurea to be preserved, it needs to be compulsory in all schools from year 0 to 10. The compulsion of te reo Māori has been a constant debate within New Zealand, but it's still not policy within schools. Yet, the proposal that New Zealand history is to be taught in all schools has only been around for 3 years, and by 2022 it will be taught in all schools in Kura. But the compulsion of te reo Māori has been 60 years of struggle, and still not much has been done. Why is this? Unfortunately, we are reliant on the dominant culture to support us in this journey. It is not something we can do on our own. He ora te whakapiri, he mate te whakatariri. There is strength in unity, anger in defeat. How is this going to work, you ask? We need you to understand what we have lost, and therefore what we need to stand as equals. This will take time and commitment to achieve this. But as the common saying goes, he waka ke noa, we are all in this canoe, with no exception. I hate you. I hate each and every one of you. Your language, your taonga wearing, tattoo flaunting, treaty entitled, university scholarship winning. Now is the time for we, you and I. Now is the time to change the rhetoric. Now is the time to step out of the past and make positive steps towards the future. And now is the time to turn hate into love.
Thank you, Sarah. Now we're going to give the judges a few minutes before the next speech. While we wait, we're going to listen to some music from a performance of Ethno New Zealand, a music project that brings young musicians from around the world to share their music and culture. The camp this year was hosted at Piritahi Marae on Waiheke Island, and these recordings are from a community concert at that marae. To find out more about how you can participate or support Ethno New Zealand, you can visit ethnonewzealand.com. The first track tonight is a Swedish piece of music called Valslasi Elibi. Our next speaker is Jess Jenkins, a Year 13 student from Tawa College representing Lower North Island.
I stand complete, yet I am divided. I speak in the tongue of the obvious, yet I am verbally illiterate in my other. For I have been suppressed, I have been cheated, I have been deceived. But I am the oppressor, I am the cheater, the liar. I am lost in this present, confused, confuzzled. So I look back to the past only to find that I stumbled. You see, when part A of me took what the other once had, lied, deceived, part B became mad. After some speeches, some alcohol and ill-fitting prose, part A went and stole, which we forgot to disclose. So easily, so simply, as quick as could be, and boom, suddenly we became a colony. For a colonised state we now had become, all hail the Queen, the mighty Vic One. Now part B was furious, running about, prancing around with my bum hanging out, deemed underdeveloped, deprived and distressed. Part A didn't realise, we didn't know best. So quite naturally, quickly, a fight was begun and raged many years before they became one. And although one piece they may be, standing before you, me, I am still conflicted because, am I really free? Are we free to be? I am white. I am the symbol of the oppressor, the racist, the problem. I'm not the perception of a victim. I am the majority, the white man. Externally, in my current form, I represent the sheltered, the contribution, a mere statistic that outnumbers the minorities within society. I am as white as the smoke that escaped the guns that I used all those years ago. The guns I held with pride, the guns I took and aimed and shot another part of myself with. For no longer am I the dormant embryo inside of my tupuna as they died in the hands of their oppressors. Myself. For when I look to my past, I am not met with unity or guidance, but confronted with division. For I am Māori. But where do these two worlds meet? Where do they mesh and meld into one so that we as a society can be considered in union? Like the physical representation of my being. Te tiro whakamuri ki a ngā whakamua. To face the future, look to the past. To face our future, I look to my past. Within it, I've experienced pain, division, oppression, the horrors of colonisation, racism. I must move forward. We must move forward. Look beyond this separation within myself. A conflict of races based on ethnic prejudice and misguided, inevitable judgment. In Aotearoa, we come from a place of division. From the very day of the corrupt signing off Te Tiriti o Waitangi, we cemented an already separate society. From 1877 until 1951, there was a separate census for Māori, and it was not until 1945 that we received full old age and widow's pensions. One part of me, my European white part, took pleasure in this exclusion. I shut my Māori part out, made certain that bars, cinemas, hotels and swimming pools sometimes excluded Māori. Made sure that some properties were not available to rent. I didn't allow part of me to speak in my native tongue. I suppressed my own culture, deemed myself below me because I was white. Ironically, I didn't realise that one day those brown people I was excluding would actually become me in the form of my descendant. That descendant stands here before you today. Yes, I am white, I am Māori, but I am me. Racism is real. Racism is not a mere concept. Racism occurs daily. We see this in all stages of life, from the seemingly insignificant childhood chants and the playground taunts to the snide, unaware comments that we hear from young and old alike on a daily basis. And 20 years from now, we must reach a place where we are all equal, a mutual agreement where every citizen is treated for their contributions, their achievements, where Aotearoa won't require a quota system or ethnic filtering because we will all be equal. There will be no comments, no stares, no questions. This is the future we need to envision. We must start now to secure this future, for unfortunately, we still have so far to go. Just over a year ago, Aotearoa endured her darkest day. A horrific act of terrorism saw innocent lives stolen in a house of prayer in Christchurch. Immediately following this heinous attack, social media came alive with condolences. Two of the main messages that stuck were the expressions, "This is not us," and "They are us." No, we are not proud of this aspect, but this is us. We are a country in denial. Islamophobia exists here. Racism exists here. As a Māori with white skin, I don't personally experience it, but it pains me that so many people who are close to me do. Just as my white ancestors fought my Māori ones, racism exists here. We are all immigrants sharing one whenua. We must first address the blatant separation occurring within society today in order to secure our ideal racism-free future. They are us. Of course they are us. So why did it need to be reinforced? Who is us? All New Zealanders? Because if all New Zealanders are us, then were they not us before the attack? If this same thing had happened to white New Zealanders, would we be saying they are us? Exactly. We are all immigrants sharing one whenua. We must reach a place of true unity. And I don't mean the unified society we call ourselves now. I mean a society where we are not bogged down by racist and bigoted, judgmental views. If I can't look within my own past to face a racism-free future, then I must look elsewhere. 57 years ago, a man stood on a podium and said, "I have a dream." It seems the whole world marveled, said they had dreams too, played along with his proposition and decided that we would try and make a change, an eradication of racial prejudice. But at that same time, it was proclaimed that if a dream it is, then a dream it shall be. You see, 5 years later, that same man was shot and killed for his courage, for his mission. And 52 years on from Martin Luther King Jr.'s day of death, we are still fighting this issue. We are still dreaming. Yes, we have progressed, but we still have so far to go. These are the past leaders we draw on to face our future with. E tū ki te kia o te wā kaka pākia koe e ngā ngaro o te wā. Stand at the stern of the canoe and feel the spray of the future biting at your face. These leaders of the past stood on their vessels to face the future. We too must feel the hope and unity that so drove their mission. I am not yet complete. Physically, I stand as a whole, but I am not equal. In the future, I dream that we will be equal, truly equal, and in a day and age that relies on its youth. As rangatahi, we must pursue that highest mountain, the tip of that peak. For one day, I believe we can truly be complete.
Thank you, Jess. The second track tonight is a wedding march from Estonia. Next speaker is Brooke Hyland, a Year 12 student from New Plymouth Girls High School, representing Taranaki.
The waka that arrived 700 years ago on a small island in the Pacific Ocean was filled with voyagers traveling far and wide looking for a place to call home. The waka they traveled on was so strong and cultural. It allowed the voyagers to follow the stars and the sea and was built together by a community that wanted a home full of endless safety. New Zealand's future and past are interwoven like the strands of a kete that mesh and combine to make one incredible strength. As the generation of the future, we have the power to look to the past. We have the power to make a change, and we have the power to face the future, to save the safety and security here in New Zealand. Every morning, as I open up my curtains and I feel the beautiful sun shining deeply onto my sensitive skin, I think, I'm wharamarie e noho ano ahui e te whenua o maru. Wow, I'm lucky to live in such a safe country. Aotearoa, praying deeply as we sit in our confined lounges, we stare into the television on Channel 1 at 6 p.m. We watch as if it's a movie and are blinded by the surreal events that really go on in other countries. The news reports are always about the bombings in Syria, the fires in Australia, or the cop in America killing an innocent due to the colour of their skin. How selfish are we? That one sunny weekend, we get to flip off our jandals and eat our fish and chips on the beach, while the less unfortunate are exhausted. They're trying to escape their countries, their homes, and even their loved ones, wishing nothing more than to immigrate to New Zealand, one of the safest places in the world. Aotearoa came crumbling down as news struck us on March 15th, 2019. Friday prayer for our beautiful Muslims was being held, but two white supremacists that day didn't only come into our country, but they went into the place where Muslims feel safe the most. These men injured 49 and took the lives of 51 people. The Christchurch shooting was strictly an act of racism. Racism is the war that we have fought for centuries and the fight that still lies underneath the surface of humanity. Together as a nation, we rose and united together. But why did it take us 51 lives to do so? It's like the norm in society to only come together when bad things have occurred. Are we still one of the safest places in the world? The morning after the attack, as I opened up my curtains and I looked into the miserable sky, I felt for the first time unsafe in my own country. And I know I wasn't the only one. Our waka is our home. Together as a community, we have torn it to pieces. The pieces that held our waka together fell apart, and it was simply because of humanity spitting racist comments out of our mouths. Without the pieces like security that holds us together, we fear we are unsafe, because when things like this break, we cannot keep moving forward. A leader I look up to, New Plymouth Girls High School principal, Mrs. Kerr, in one of our latest assemblies in memory for the Christchurch shooting quoted, "I used to live in London where bombings and shootings were normal, but I was so naive thinking I was safe in New Zealand until the Christchurch shooting." We are not in a country where nothing happens. Aotearoa, we need to act before it's too late, or to design a plan fast as possible to ensure that we have the safest outcome for the people here in New Zealand. I believe with the help of our current Prime Minister, Jacinda Ardern, New Zealand is already making progress to keep Aotearoa safe. Our government quickly designed a plan to stop the worldwide coronavirus overtaking the population here in New Zealand. We are now collecting the pieces off of our broken waka, and we are learning from the past to ensure that as a community together, we will act before it's too late, learning to be cautious as our brains still comprehend the shock that we are not in a country where nothing happens. What do I want our future to look like? I would love for cultures in New Zealand to all come together. New Zealand is known to be one of the most culture diverse countries. But to me, culture diverse doesn't just mean inviting cultures into New Zealand. To me, it is inviting them into our home and a part of our whānau. I challenge you to step outside of your comfort zone and invite someone from a different culture into your life. Here in Aotearoa, we invite for all cultures and communities to join our beautiful country. But when they're here, they seem to stay within their community. Let's change that. Let's invite all cultures, no matter what age, race, colour or gender you are. We invite you to be part of the flax we weave and the waka we build, and to become one community. Together we are able to fight the battle of racism. I think 20 years from now, New Zealand will be a home for almost every culture. Defeating the battle of racism will be a key part for securing my thoughts for this. As if we succeed with this, the cultures in New Zealand will not just be many different cultures, but we will all become one. Me mahi tahi tōtu mo te arongi o te katoa. We should work together for the well-being of everyone. What can we learn from our ancestors and leaders of the past about how to eradicate racial prejudice? Meg Yamyip, a leader who once said, "We New Zealanders are at risk of continuing to repeat our past. To make a change, we'll need to start looking back to understand the present." Asians, Māoris, Europeans, Indians, Polynesians, Africans, we are all people. We may come from different cultures and communities, but just because of the colour of our skin does not mean me or you is better than anyone else. We do not want communities here in New Zealand to have to fear. As an individual, you have the right to have confidence walking down a street alone with your head held high and your values and beliefs as strong as they can be. Meg Yamyip also quotes, "We walk backwards into the future." Our waka, our home, can reconnect again. We're learning from the past to learn for the future. And by bringing all communities together, we'll enhance relationships we have and bring back the safety for the communities that live here now and that will live here in the future. We have to learn to be grateful for the country we live in, but also query whether or not you feel safe and what you can do as an individual to help. Remember, we are not living in a country where nothing happens. We need to act before it's too late. 10 years into the future, I wonder if we will still lower our head for a minute of silence on March 15th. Will we fight the battle of racism together and become one community? A seed in the beginning is very small, but in the end, a great tree. We will grow. Together, Aotearoa, we will stand, we will commute, and we will look to the past and the present to face the future. He kana ohuie e muie e tutiri. Kia kaha.
Thank you, Brooke. The third track tonight is a combined Jewish and Irish polka. Our next speaker is Frederick Duncan, a Year 12 student from Marlborough Boys High School, representing Upper South Island.
Ngā mihi nui, kia koutou katoa. Te Nuku is my mountain. The Wairau is my river. Marlborough is my home. My name is Frederick Duncan. Each and every one of my names has a connection to my past. Frederick is originally from German and means he who rules with peace. John is from Hebrew and means a gift from God. My last name, Duncan, is Gaelic and means brown warrior. It's a lot to live up to. Every one of my names has a connection to my past. Each one reminds me of my heritage each and every day. Heritage for my family here in New Zealand, and heritage for my family's distant past, from Scotland, from England, and from the Vikings. I'm descended from many different tribes and many different lands, some who have lived in harmony and some who have lived in conflict. All of these voices, all of these records help to form who I am and to prove my voice for the future. I've dug into that broad heritage for a karakia. I chose a sermon from John Donne, written over 400 years ago. No man is an island entire of itself. Every man is a piece of the continent, a part of the main. Any man's death diminishes me, because I am involved in mankind. And therefore, never seem to know for whom the bell tolls. It tolls for thee. John Donne lived through a time of great turmoil, war, and plague. He lived in a religious minority, yet he never stopped preaching about how humanity is interconnected. My actions have consequences for you, and your actions have consequences for me. He knew that the plague spread from person to person, town to town. He said that when the bell tolled over in the next town, signaling the death of a stranger, you could not ignore it, because that bell could be ringing for you. In the age of COVID-19, this message from the past is even more important. It helps to guide us in our future. It proves, it reminds us of our humanity and interconnectedness to all people. We're all part of a whole. I was not supposed to be here today. I should have been overseas, following the footsteps of my ancestors. I should be staring up at the Monte Cassino Monastery in Italy, where my great-great-uncle Tom fought in the war. I should have stood on the battlefields of the Western Front, where my great-grandfather Frederick was wounded. Instead, I have had to experience history here in New Zealand's first lockdown. So here I am, talking about history. In World War II, between 15 and 20,000 men were sent from New Zealand in brigades and battalions. One specially formed battalion, the 28th, was also known as the Māori Battalion. This was the only battalion in the war comprised solely of Māori. They stood, separated, yet together, fighting side by side. The Māori Battalion came out of the war as the most heavily decorated out of all of New Zealand's forces. They came back with mana and mahi, with whakaute, respect. The Māori Battalion acts as a window to our past, showing us what to do. in the future for racial relations in Aotearoa. It shows sacrifice, action, and celebration. They were willing to sacrifice their lives, to take action no matter the cost, and to celebrate once they returned in victory. This is a look to the past. This is something that can be used to guide us in the future. So, what is the future that we face? For right now, we're busy trying to stamp out COVID-19. We're also trying to stamp out racism. We want to be COVID-free. We want racial unity. I know that I am Pakeha. I have no Maori heritage. I recognize that I would not have experienced or recognized some of the struggles that others would have gone through. But I am prepared to try. I am but one small seed. The seed in the beginning is very small, but in the end, a great tree. One should not consider the seed, but the tree in its abundance of leaves, blossoms, and fruit. This Baha'i saying goes on to describe how powerful a small start can be. So we have a start, one small seed, and we have a roadmap, sacrifice, action, and celebration. With a start and a clear direction, we can make a strong impact, but only if we begin early. The younger generations are our seeds. Soon, they will be our trees of tomorrow. If these trees grow, then in 10, 20 years' time, they will be ready to start their own journey in a self-perpetuating cycle. It'll take some of us to sacrifice, to do things we would not normally do, to step where others would not usually dare to step. Once we're willing to sacrifice and we take action, we can rake in those achievements and celebrate as a community. Our older generation can support our younger members to work together to achieve goals that we all desperately want to see happen. So they can join in the action, they can take part in the celebration to stamp out racism. We need to learn the lessons of history. Communities are stronger than individuals. We are all interconnected. To succeed, people need to discover what unites them and not what divides them. We are on our way to racial unity, but we're not there yet. Being the positive change takes us a step closer to race unity. The process of sacrifice, action, and celebration has already been started. We just need to carry it on together.
Thank you, Frederick. The fourth track tonight is an Arabian Andalusian piece called Lambada.
Wani waya hirati, wani waya hirati, manli rahim shakwati filhum bimin lawati illa malikul jama illa malikul jama filhum bimin lawati illa malikul jama illa malikul jama illa malikul jama.
Our next speaker is Olivia Pierce, a Year 12 student from Diocesan School for Girls, representing Auckland.
We, as New Zealanders today, are facing a common enemy: racial division. Although we arrived on this land in separate ships, we are now in the same boat, and it is our responsibility to keep it afloat. He waka eke noa. Somewhere I read that a nation's culture resides in the heart and in the soul of its people. Those are the wise words of Mahatma Gandhi. However, in modern day Aotearoa, that is far from the case, as we are not embracing people of all races, even though we are and will continue to be a melting pot of cultures. Aotearoa is my aipukarea, a singular word which means the place that represents the history and emotional attachment of the tribe, a place central to the identity of the people, where they can go to be rejuvenated, the life-giving waters from which they drink. That is Aotearoa. We weren't always so diverse. A long time ago, we were one culture, Māori. My people settled on this land and made it their sole responsibility to nurture and care for it as Papa Tuanuku instructed them to do so. Eventually, the European settlers arrived. They did not share the same beliefs with the Māori people. They believed that they owned land and could do what they pleased to it. They also believed that they had a right to the land that they saw before them. They called the Māori people savages, but they were the ones causing mass destruction to the land around them. So, the Māori people were in a battle. They clutched their taiaha patu and their tau, but the Europeans had a much more powerful weapon: the Bible. Slowly but surely, they began forcing the Bible upon the Māori people. They spoke of God, mighty and all-knowing, as they began to chip away at the resources of the land. They spoke of God, whose mother tongue was English, and they convinced the Māori people to abandon te reo in order to be closer to this God. So, while they were giving Māori people the gift of God, they were running the resources dry, taking land, animals, but most importantly, power. People today lack an appreciation for the issues with the formation of our nation. It may sound a tad extreme, but none of us would have the well-preserved country that we do right now without the benevolent actions of the Māori people in the past. We chop, change, and utilize this land so selfishly, so greedily, at such a pace, not stopping, never stopping to remember the pain and suffering, the whakamahi, the work of the Māori people in the past. There are people living in New Zealand who can't even manage to open their mouths during the Māori verse to our national anthem. The anthem is meant to signify unity in our country, and yet at any test match, at any sports game, you can hear the deafening crescendo as we switch to the English language. The forgotten verse. The verse that the Māori people, my people, our people, fought, killed, and died for. And for what? In 2018, Diocesan Kapahaka Group performed at Polyfest for the first time in decades. I was beyond proud to be there in that moment. However, this year, there weren't even enough members to fill the stage, and when we were at Polyfest, many of the girls in the group were called uncultured, plastic, and stiff. Polyfest is meant to be a place where culture can be embraced and celebrated, yet so many girls from my school felt like they didn't belong there because of their race. So, is culture something to be celebrated by all? Or is it only for those who belong to Indigenous groups? In 20 years' time, I pray that the state we are in now will change, that time will allow us to leave the issues of the past where they belong, in the past, that we will not identify and categorize people by their race. I hope that we have equal admiration and respect for people of all races, as at the end of the day, your race does not define you. We as a nation should be defining people by their character and their actions, not by pre-constructed labels made by those in the past. When I was in primary school, no one was ever labeled by their race. The color of their face didn't matter. There was no Chinese girl, Māori girl, Indian girl. We were all just girls. We were taught to judge. We were taught which color crayon was skin color. We were taught to differentiate ourselves by race. Love is natural, but hatred is taught. If we are to teach racial unity, and if we are to carry on a real war against racism, we must begin with the children. Nō reira e hoa mā te kōrero e te reo e ora ai. We need to incorporate te reo more in our daily lives, especially in education. Slowly, as more and more people lose their vital connection to te reo Māori, less people are connected to the culture of Māori people in New Zealand. How do we maintain this culture? The way to maintain culture is to celebrate it as a community. We should feel encouraged to celebrate and embrace people from every single background, every single culture, every single race. We need to ensure that people of smaller ethnic groups don't feel like they're trapped on the outside looking in. Nā ku te rauro no te rauro ka ora ai te iwi. Every ill-spoken word takes the wind out of our sails. Every racist stereotype takes the fuel from our engine. Every racist act is an ice block in our path. We as a nation need to change. He waka eke noa. Otherwise, our ship is going to sink.
Thank you, Olivia. The fifth track tonight is a Taonga Poro composition from Aotearoa, New Zealand. Our next speaker is Lucia Bernards, a year 11 student from Tawa College, representing Lower North Island.
E te iwi, kua tai mai te wā, maranga mai, maranga mai, maranga mai. Whakarongo mai ki te reo, ngā rangatira. O ngā tangata o tēnei whenua kua tūrā kaha ana I raru I te taumaha o ngā āhuatanga o te wā. Ko mātou nei he tangata tāki o tēnei whenua. Ko mātou nei ngā tamariki nā ngā atua. Ko mātou anō he tūhangana kui mana koroma. Ko mātou anō he kaitiaki mā ngā tamariki mokopuna. Mai te tipua, mai te tāpito I kōnei mātou. Taino atu hoki ki te mutunga te ao, ka tū tonu mai mātou. Ake, 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 tonu e. To the people, the time has arrived. Wake up, arise. Listen to the words, to the language of the chiefs. To the people of this land who are standing strong despite the heavy circumstances of this time. We are the indigenous people of this land. We are the children of the gods, we are the descendants of our ancestors, and we are the guardians of our descendants. Since the time of the ghosts from the distant past, we have been here. Right up until the end of time, we will remain standing forever and ever. To face the future, we must look to the past. And here is my whānau story. 1st of December 1941, to Mrs. A. Thompson, Henna. Much regret to inform you that your son, 26059 Private Richard Thompson, has been reported wounded. The Prime Minister desires me to convey to you, on behalf of the government, his sincere wishes for a speedy recovery. F. Jones, Minister of Defence. 27th of January 1942, to Mrs. A. Thompson, Henna. Dearest mother, by gosh, there were a lot of misses up here. I've never seen so many arms and legs off in all my life, men ruined for life. So I ask you, is that the price of citizenship? This is my koro, Richard Awatea Thompson, and at the tender age of 16, he enlisted into the 28th Māori Battalion. For the 6 years he was in service, he wrote and received over 100 letters. I have read you part of 2. 2 letters which paint you a picture of the determination, of the struggle, of the blood, the sweat, and the tears my koro went through fighting for his country. For Māori, the Second World War was seen as their price of citizenship. How awful is that? Having to prove in such a drastic way that you belong in your own country? Our young men who fought in the Māori battalion risked their lives and in some cases lost their lives for Aotearoa. Why? Why did they fight for a country who wouldn't fight for them? While leaders such as Sir Apirana Ngata stressed the price of citizenship line, ultimately, Māori enlisted for a mixture of reasons. To escape poverty was a big one, but also to break out from life in the back blocks. Many Māori saw the war as their big opportunity, a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to show that they were more than what they were perceived to be. Over 3,500 Māori served in the 28th Māori Battalion in World War II. But as British subjects, Māori would then go on to serve in the defence of the empire. Te Poia Herangi questioned why Māori should fight for an empire that had within living memory invaded and occupied their lands. But as it turned out, the war was the first time Māori and Pākehā worked alongside each other for a common cause. Race and culture didn't matter as they were fighting for the same thing. The common purpose was peace and unity. It could be said that this was a clear demonstration of Māori's commitment to the principles of the Treaty of Waitangi, namely partnership, participation, and protection. For those of our men that were lucky enough to return home like my koro, they were not the same men they left as. Many came back suffering from various undiagnosed mental illnesses, alcoholism, and violence. Particularly for Māori that didn't have access to the same healthcare and support as Pākehā, which impacted not only their lives, but the lives of their whānau. The ripple effect of the war was vast and long-lasting, the price of citizenship. Today, many generations later, Māori is still affected by the impact that the war had on its returning soldiers. The price of citizenship. So how might we commemorate events in our past in a way that helps bring about justice and unity to today? Well, from the perspective of our war, we have Anzac Day. And it is important that the younger generation never forgets what our ancestors did to fight for a free world. It is our responsibility to make sure that we continue that fight in the modern world. Our generation is facing a different type of war, the war of racism, terrorism, and worldwide pandemics. As a country and a nation, even more so than ever, we must overcome these challenges that are presented, irrespective of race, gender, religion, and beliefs. He waka e ke noa, we are all in this together. 11th of May, 2020, to Richard Awatea Thompson. Dear Koro, this is my letter to you. Thank you for the sacrifice that you made to make our world a better place. You passed away many years ago and I've never met you, but I know you. In the 19 years that you've been gone, the world is a much different place, although in some respects, nothing has really changed. We're still seeing racism around the world, bias within organisations and minorities struggling to thrive in society. Although Māori have always had a voice, in recent times we are only learning how to use it to better the lives of our people and our communities. It's been a long road and there is still much work to do, and we must face the challenges that are presented. In the words of our rangatira, Sir Apirana Mahuika, e tū ki te kei o te waka, kia pā kia koe e ngā ngaru o te wā. Stand at the stern of the canoe and feel the spray of the future biting at your face. You can be proud of your whānau koro. My mother, your daughter, has continued to serve our people, communities, and country as you did. She continues to break down barriers, being a leader and a minority voice in a challenging yet rewarding organisation. Your influence and strong ethics flows through your whānau and through me. From your actions of bravery, patriotism, and leadership, together with the other great leaders of our past, has paved a pathway for Rangatahi to continue the fight of eradicating racial prejudice. Guess what, koro? I am the hope that your price of citizenship is properly recognised and acknowledged. I will not let your service and sacrifices be forgotten. I will not sit back and accept racism, bias, and inequality towards anybody. And I will not let the younger generation abrogate their responsibility to continue this fight. Koro, this is my promise to you. And I stand here strong at the beginning of my journey and leadership, proudly wearing the tiki that you took to war all those years ago. Thank you for giving your today for our tomorrow. Tēnā tātou katoa.
Thank you, Lucia. The sixth track tonight is from Chile and is called Regale mis ojos.
Yeah.
Canto desde el negro más profundo de la humanidad, canto con la fuerza de los pueblos y su identidad, canto con la fuerza de la lucha por la dignidad, canto para que el canto sea un arma de la libertad, canto para denunciar que nunca más no era verdad, canto por los muertos que se fueron y no volverán, canto sin sosiego porque nada los devolverá, canto por Gustavo y por los días que ya no verá. Entre tanta noche, entre tanta muerte, regale mis ojos para que la gente despierte. Entre tanta noche, entre tanta muerte, regale mis ojos para que la gente despierte. Como un río de esperanza por lo que vendrá, canto porque el miedo que tenemos se nos pasará, canto por el principio que ya no haya más impunidad, canto para que el canto sea un arma de la libertad, canto por los niños que son libres de toda maldad, canto por los viejos que merecen otra realidad, canto y tengo pena y me da rabia la desigualdad, canto porque el verso es mi fusil en esta sociedad. Entre tanta noche, entre tanta muerte, regale mis ojos para que la gente despierte. Entre tanta noche, entre tanta muerte, regale mis ojos para que la gente despierte. Entre tanta noche y entre tanta muerte, regale mis ojos para que la gente despierte. Entre tanta noche y entre tanta muerte, regale mis ojos para que la gente despierte.
seventh and final speaker of the night is Henna, a Year 13 student from Gisborne High School, representing Gisborne and Wairoa.
Long ago, racial unity was an elusive ideal. Over time, humanity has made strides, but we still have a long way to go. Which is why in 2020, I stand before you and ask myself, why is it that kids still feel crippled by racial barriers? Let's look at society like a song. The youth are the verse, young adults the bridge, adults and the elderly are the chorus. We all exist for differing purposes, yet complement each other's needs in harmony to create rhythm. This is the hope for a future where our shared humanity becomes the music of our lives. Today, racism is a jarring note in society's song, singing out of tune in a key that doesn't connect us together. These are unnecessarily amplified because racism is learned from peers, elders, role models. Today, we stand up for race unity as a small note in a worldwide song that hopes one day we will all be singing the same tune. Racism can be inwardly provoked. If someone has a negative experience with another race, it is possible the weak-minded will associate that single conflict with an entire race of people. An example of this is Donald Trump referring to COVID-19 as the Chinese virus, a provocative attempt to lay blame for a global pandemic with China and Chinese people. As a result, Asian people worldwide were tormented in public places and became the of COVID-19 jokes. This is unacceptable. In stark contrast is our leader, Jacinda Ardern, who has made international headlines because of her racial awareness and humanity. She is a note of inspiration to keep us pursuing the song of racial unity. As we mature, we become increasingly aware of racial and ethnic differences. This hit me in full force on my very first day of high school. I walked into a room divided by race. Brown girls on one side, white girls on the other. Not one student questioned it. PE team selections saw subconscious racial segregation and racial labels became the norm. This division didn't feel right and created tension that made me dread going to school. But I noticed at a time of heightened emotion, no one was willing to call it what it was. I wanted to fix it, but I began to fear. Would calling out this division make me racist? Is anyone else worried about this? I, a 13-year-old girl, was experiencing one of the world's most dividing conflicts with no available solution. But we were lucky. Our teachers, our role models, stepped up and organised a circle time with our principals, teachers, and prefects. We confronted the issue and, most importantly, listened. It soon became apparent this divide did not arise because of our personal choices, but as a result of how we'd been conditioned and socialised. All we needed was something to facilitate that human connection, and we, over time, became united. Te tiro whakamuri ki anga whakamua. I have looked to the past and recognised the change that needs to happen in the future. That every school and youth organisation needs to have a position dedicated to dealing with race relation concerns, to deal with the misunderstandings we can all too often fall prey to. History in school curriculums also holds the key. I note that in the past 20 years, we have concentrated strongly on technological advancement, human genome projects, artificial hearts, smartphones, flash drives, social media. So much that we now live in a self-driven, self-centered society. Through this increase of self-obsession and materialism, we've lost connection and appreciation to external influences, the spiritual, the cultural aspects, leading to disdain of people who are deeply connected culturally. Through valuing the study of history in our school curriculums, we can retrieve the passion we had for culture. We can acknowledge, accept, and celebrate our past differences. However, it is much more progressive to centre our attention on every culture's common ground, our humanity, which is, unfortunately and ironically, a difficult thing to do in human nature. We are wired to look at the negatives in our lives as a defence mechanism in our precautionary mindsets. When I learned this, I got to thinking, why do I know more about the horrors of World War II than Kate Sheppard or New Zealand's independence? Psychologists call this the negativity bias, feeling the sting of rebuke more powerfully than the joy of praise. Thus, focusing only on the negative interactions between races in the past, we are scientifically wired to remember more vividly, and not teaching or shining a light on the positive ones will in turn have a disastrous impact on our race relation future. So I applaud the New Zealand education system's decision to place greater emphasis on the study of history and pray that this will include an increased focus of positive interracial interactions. Maybe this way, our negative stimuli is challenged and subconsciously we are placed on the right foot to our future with racial unity. And because weak implementation can undermine even the best designed plans, I hope to see in our future local politicians participating in race relation programs in schools at least once a month, a simple but effective method our country could take to spread the song of racial unity. Our political leaders must embody and enact the change we want to see, and our leaders such as principals, teachers, and parents must encourage it. If I've learnt anything from the past month and the unprecedented pandemic of COVID-19, is that at our core, we are all human. We are all vulnerable, no matter our gender, wealth, appearance, beliefs, or race. That as a team of 5 million, we have driven back this epidemic, and that we can, if we choose, drive the plague of racism out of our future. Te tiro whakamuri ki anga whakamua. To face the future, look to the past. I hope that in 20 years from now, we will all be singing the same song of unity, that the lyrics would be rewritten in a way that resonates with us all.
Thank you, Henna. That concludes the speeches for tonight. Now the judges have up to 30 minutes to come to a final decision, which I'm sure is going to be a very difficult decision for them to make because tonight we've heard 7 amazing speeches. In the meantime, we're going to take a look back at some of the highlights of the 2019 Race Unity Speech Awards and Hui. The topic for 2019 was Speaking for Justice, Working for Unity. We saw that more and more New Zealanders were recognising the need to speak out and address racial prejudice and injustice. So we asked, in a world that is becoming increasingly polarised, how can we make sure our efforts create real unity? Tonight we have 4 short videos to show you, each covering one of the key themes last year. The first video is called Changing Individual Hearts and Minds. It's about how we can overcome our own prejudices and respond to racism in a way that helps people learn. The second video is called Changing Collective Attitudes and Norms. It explores the question of how to make our communities more unified and inclusive for people of all backgrounds. The third video is called Changing Institutions. It looks at how institutions like our government, businesses, and the media can work towards race unity. And the last video is called The Power of Speech. This clip explores how words can be used and can work together to build unity and understanding, but the words need to be used responsibly. So without further ado, here is our 4-part video series, Towards Race Unity.
When we confront a racist joke or a racist comment, it's important that we do so in a way that doesn't ignite racist ideologies further. Show respect to the person behind the racist joke. Show respect to the person behind the racist comments, because at the end of the day, like how fires can't be extinguished with more fire, racism can't be extinguished with hate, because it feeds off it.
There is so much misinformation. The easiest way to begin that process of changing how someone views the world is actually to have a conversation.
People who come to interaction with prejudiced ideas are coming from a place of ignorance. They haven't learned about the culture that they're prejudiced against, or they don't know very much, and so they're coming into that space without much understanding.
From full immersion Te Reo Māori schooling, I went to King's, which was a very different experience. I fielded a lot of questions about Māori gravy trains and things about my family being criminals. I heard some really horrible things from some of these kids that I boarded with. But when I met their parents, I saw straight away where their views came from. So I invited some of them to my marae. By meeting my family, by meeting people in my community, they changed.
This whole journey of talking about racism in New Zealand on a public platform started with personally experiencing racism and filming it, because for so many people, they didn't think that something like that could happen in New Zealand. It's still something that I think a lot of New Zealanders struggle with, because it's not their lived experience of what it means to be a New Zealander, where for so many minority communities here, it is our lived experience of being New Zealanders.
We are living in a multicultural society in New Zealand. Some people keep saying that 51 Muslims got killed in Christchurch. No doubt, they all were believers of Muslim faith, but before that, they were the New Zealanders.
We decide whether we want to teach our children, our tamariki, to play with that one kid that's darker than them, or that one kid that's lighter than them. We decide whether we love or hate the different cultures we surround ourselves with. We decide. To be unified means to be joined as one whole. In the past, when I think of great unity on this huge scale, I think of war, disaster, segregation, death. Why is it that in our most recent history, it so often takes a tragedy or adverse event for all different kinds of people to unite?
Our communities just want to be safe, to be heard, and to be respected. Our difference is what makes us strong, it's what makes us beautiful, but what unites us is so much stronger than what divides us.
Moving our thinking beyond the language and the behaviour of tolerance. If we want to create truly unified spaces and opportunities for people, we actually have to move towards inclusion, which is where we say, actually, I value you, I value your culture, your language, your traditions, and I'm richer and this country is better when we share those things and learn from one another.
It's really important to focus on the shared values that we all have. The idea of aroha, I think, is universal. But I think it is really difficult when our society, as I said before, is kind of programmed to be an individual, that you're focusing on your own personal success, not community and love and caring for one another.
You see, in order to attain unity, we need to make an effort to get to know people different from you. By learning about other people and their culture, your life will greatly be enriched. I also believe that we should expose the next generation to diversity at a young age. Read stories that present the different view of other groups. Discuss TV shows, movies, or books that present different stereotypes.
I think starting that conversation in your household is probably one of the most effective things that you can do, because you raise a whole generation with the skills to be able to stand up for people. But also it's about getting kids involved.
Teenagers, we're in this kind of space where we're not old enough to be leaders and seen as equal to adults. I have so many opinions. I know my friends have so many opinions, and I know so many teenagers that I hear have opinions, and we want them to be heard.
I think that I have a responsibility as a New Zealander to realize that this is our past, it's who we are. So I've got to acknowledge that.
I think in order for other people to recognize their own prejudice, it's about engaging in those conversations that make you uncomfortable. It's only through getting uncomfortable that I think that we are able to step forward, and through sharing our stories, I think it creates this beautiful intersectionality between minority groups, and through that we can find empowerment for one another.
In a multicultural society, we need media sources which accurately portray our multicultural society. Portraying people of colour as the standard bearers of intelligence, success, beauty, and professionalism, along with their white counterparts.
It shouldn't take 50 lives for us to finally come together. It shouldn't take 50 lives for us to finally realize that racism still lives in New Zealand, because it's been going on for decades and decades. And we can talk and talk about racism, but if nothing ever gets done, then nothing ever changes.
No people of influence, such as government officials, teachers, or parents, should ever use language that is derogatory because of race, religion, or gender. The leaders of today are influencing the leaders of tomorrow.
We've got over 213 ethnicities represented in New Zealand. We collectively speak over 160 languages, and I strongly believe that New Zealand is strong as a nation because of this diversity and not in spite of it. However, we could do better.
We need to recognize that we are all different, but we are all New Zealanders of different shapes, colors, of different religion. I think recognizing that is probably the very first step that we need to take.
I think that one of the major things that we can actually do is acknowledge Te Tiriti o Waitangi as the founding document of this country. If we were to genuinely honour it, then our parliamentary system would be far more collaborative and creative and inclusive.
So the leadership that's required from myself and my colleagues is actually to change not only the institution, but the way the institution works across the entire government plan, across the entire community expectation.
The laws are made to safeguard and protect communities, and so long as those laws reflect the diversity of our communities and respond to the aspirations and needs of those communities, then we have no problem with what the law says.
It's important that communities see themselves reflected in our organization. The ability for us to speak the languages of our communities, the abilities for us to understand the cultures and different religious groups that are in the community.
Our ethnic liaison officers, the creation of them was in around 2003, I believe, and it was in response to seeing a need amongst our ethnic community, an officer who could identify with, who could speak the languages of and totally understand where the communities were coming from.
My daughter came to me and she wanted to take a particular subject, and the teacher kind of indicated to her that perhaps she should think of other subjects. My daughter came away feeling she was told she couldn't do it. I said, I know you can do that subject. You go back to that teacher and you enroll in that subject.
Did you do it?
Yes.
Aotearoa New Zealand, we are an inclusive, welcoming country. We are, absolutely. But we must also have inclusive and welcoming attitudes in every single institution that we have, including our schools and our education system. We ask, what are the most important things that we should address in the education system? A young person will get up and say, please address institutional racism, institutional bias.
The power to re-empower those marginalised communities lies in the hands of our educational institutions. In New Zealand, Māori students are falling behind on every measure of educational outcome. However, those students who are attending Māori immersive schools actually achieve higher on all fronts, NCA, university, and employment. It's clear that systemic bias and the enduring legacy of colonization is behind this ongoing disadvantage of Māori people. In such a multicultural society, never has it been more vital that our educational institutions place an emphasis on history, culture, and language. And I truly believe we can eradicate these educational inequalities if we cultivate culturally flexible minds and provide all students with the assurance that they have both the responsibility and the right to be there.
Words can hurt, whether you mean them to or not. You see, majority of modern day slang is still weighted with historical heartache. You see, in my culture, we have a saying, "E pala le ma'a, ai le pala tala." Stones erode away, but words will never decay.
So we know that the right to free speech is one of the fundamental human rights that our actual democracy depends on. That has to be balanced against all of the other rights that ensure a free and secure democracy and that we can all participate equally. So the right to be free from discrimination.
We have to have a responsibility when we are speaking. Free speech doesn't mean that it gives us a right to attack anyone. If we want others to respect us, we have to respect others.
We can use free speech to say what we think, but through that understanding and that interaction, then we can discover more about one another. How we deliver our speech is really important. If we're angry, if we see something we don't agree with, and then we react. And so probably important to pause, to think about it, to find out more about it, and then to say something.
And the best way to share with people and to educate them is humbly. You can't say, oh, you know, you're wrong, and get really aggressive towards them, because they'll shut off. They'll feel like, oh, I'm being attacked. My own perspectives are being silenced. And then there's like that barrier to communication. So first and foremost, you need a humble posture of actually wanting to share with kindness and with love.
When you create this construct of freedom of speech, you need to ensure that things that you're saying are not only truthful, but are also respectful. And is there balance in what you're saying? Is there the right of reply?
Freedom of expression is always tempered by responsibility. In mainstream media, we hold that balance, and we do get to decide who is going to be heard and who isn't. And so it's extremely important to keep that platform open for the most unheard in our community. If your freedom of speech is oppressing another community or other people, then it's no longer freedom of speech, because it's not their freedom.
No speech that we have in a public platform or in a private platform is ever in isolation. It's part of a much wider narrative that's built in from international influence and local influence. And we've got to be mindful of that.
All these powerful social platforms allow us to connect, but with connection comes responsibility.
Social media has a responsibility, where they have allowed the rapid spread of hate in the form of offensive comments, videos, and memes. They can be made accountable, because freedom of speech is not freedom to hate.
I hope you enjoyed those videos. Please feel free to share them widely on social media so more people can hear that rich kōrero about unity and justice. Last year, we had over 120 high school students deliver speeches on these themes, and around 150 youth from around Aotearoa took part in the Race Unity Hui. So that was just the highlight reel from a very rich kōrero. If you'd like to hear more from 2019, you can watch the finalists' speeches here on YouTube, or you can read the 2019 Youth Statement on Race Relations, available on our website, raceunity.nz. If you'd like to take part in the 2020 Race Unity Hui, then please keep an eye out on our website and Facebook page. There will be some more information coming soon. We still have about 15 minutes until our judges are due back. So in the meantime, we're going to take a look at some videos produced by the Human Rights Commission over the last few years for their campaign, Give Nothing to Racism. The first clip gives us an overview of the campaign, which made lots of New Zealanders aware of the standard needed to give nothing to racism. Then we'll look at the video Taikia Waitete contributed to the campaign. Taikia asks a critical question. What happens if we all stop giving something to racism? The next two videos give us some examples of racism in Aotearoa and what we can do about it. They feature the New Zealand Police and the previous Race Relations Commissioner, Dame Susan Devoy. Then we'll watch singer-songwriter Aradna talk about what moved her to write her song, Brown Girl, and we'll have a look at the song's music video. And last of all, we'll watch some students from Holy Family School in Porirua talk about how we can give nothing to racism in our classrooms. Many thanks to the Human Rights Commission for putting these clips together, and happy watching, everyone.
It's an ugly truth, but we can't imagine a world where racism doesn't exist. Because it's ugly, we avoid it. We deny it's our problem to solve, as individuals, as brands, as a nation. We take comfort instead in being only a little racist, and so we let it live on. On June the 5th, the New Zealander of the Year asked us to acknowledge what we were doing.
Remember, the only thing that can keep racism alive and help it grow is feeding it, nurturing it. And that's where you come in. Will you help it flourish? What will you give to racism?
The ugly truth became something people wanted to own. They felt less comfortable laughing it off, feeding it, tolerating it, and allowing it to grow. And instead committed to give racism no laughs, no smiles, no positive reactions, no support. The first to show their commitment were influential Kiwis, then individuals, businesses, organisations, and cities. We gave people a standard to live up to and a way to respond to racism in the real world and online. By making a public stand, they're holding themselves to account and asking each of us to check ourselves against this standard too. True change comes when we allow our actions to be judged against the standard we hold up. By committing to give nothing to racism, we're making it possible to believe racism has no place in our future. The campaign was presented to the UN Committee on Racial Injustice as a significant action we've taken against racism. The campaign was met with universal applause and the words, "Racism starts small, but so too does hope."
As New Zealander of the Year, I'm calling on every one of my fellow Kiwis to help support a very important cause. Racism needs your help to survive. You may not be in a position to give much to racism, but whatever you feel comfortable giving will make a huge difference. You don't have to be a full-on racist. Just being a tiny bit racist is enough. A smile, a cheeky giggle, even a simple nod in agreement. It all adds up, and it gives others the message that it's okay.
Frequently asked questions about racism. But I'm not a real racist. Can I still help?
Of course. Even if you don't come from a racist background, that's okay. Being a bit racist is super easy.
How do I spread the word?
You don't actually have to talk people into it. Just be a bit racist, and they'll feel the social pressure to follow along.
My mum says being a bit racist is bad.
Oh, shut up, Mum.
What's in it for me?
Nothing. There's no benefit whatsoever to being racist. But ask yourself, what if everyone stopped giving to racism? What kind of future would that be for our children?
If I only give a little bit, will it even make a difference?
Not to you, no. But to the people receiving the racism, they'll be getting hundreds of small bits every day, so it will add up. It will be noticed.
How do I show my support?
You might not want to wear a t-shirt that says how much of a racist you are. No thanks. I'm racist on the inside. But you can laugh at racist comments. It does the same thing. Remember, the only thing that can keep racism alive and help it grow is feeding it, nurturing it. And that's where you come in. Will you help it flourish? What will you give to racism?
Many people don't think racial intolerance or racism is a problem, often because they haven't experienced it themselves. But we're seeing more and more often stories coming to the surface.
One News can reveal more than half of medical students surveyed experienced racism, bullying and sexual harassment while on placements.
And it's got so bad, some are leaving the profession altogether.
Kai te whakahaere tētahi toa hokomaha countdown ki kirikiriroa, I te taitirohanga o kawa ki a ia anō whai muri I te whakamai pātu ki tētahi kōhine Māori, I whakapaetia hētia mo te whānako. He whakapai, whakapāhotia, I runga I te tuku.
Racial abuse directed towards some Polynesian players. It has the South Island's West Coast Rugby Union in a spin.
We have 18% of migrants polled by Envy have experienced racial discrimination. A third of the formal complaints to the Human Rights Commission are about racial discrimination. However, the overwhelming majority of people never complain or go public when they are told to go back to where they came from. These are the types of casual racist encounters that don't feel very casual when it's you or your family are the ones that are being humiliated. A few years ago, a man on a bus began racially abusing some young men. A brave woman called Penny called him out and told him to stop it.
Welcome to New Zealand.
She shows us how everyday racism can be called out by everyday New Zealanders. While overt racism is not as widespread as it is overseas, we need to have meaningful conversations about the realities of racism and what each and every one of us can and must do about it.
Kia ora, everybody. Racism and racist attacks aren't just things that happen overseas. They happen right here in New Zealand to everyday people. So here are some tips for Kiwis on what to do if a racist attack happens to you or in front of you. And it's pretty simple. 3 words: support, record, report. Support. First, try to support the person being attacked. It might be as simple as going up to them and asking them if they are okay. Ignore the attacker. Make sure the victim knows that she or he is not alone. Support the victim during and after the attack. They will be feeling a range of emotions: fear, anger, embarrassment. Make them feel better by knowing that they are not alone. Don't be a bystander. Record. If you can, record the attack on a phone. It helps to make sure we hold people to account. And finally, report. Report the attack to the authorities. Call the police. Alert the bus driver. Find the train guard. Don't let it slide. We are so lucky to live in one of the most ethnically diverse, as well as one of the most peaceful countries on earth. It's up to all of us to keep it that way.
At Holy Family School, we give nothing to racism, and this is our challenge to all educators. Not all brown children are the same. Get to know us and get to know our culture. I am Māori. I am Tongan, Fijian, and Tokelauan. I am Tokelauan and Samoan. As teachers, you can be our biggest supporters or our biggest barriers. Do you know how powerful you are in our lives? Challenge us. Believe that we can achieve. One simple way that you can put a stop to racism is by pronouncing our names properly. My name is Sarah. Sarah. My name is Itere. Itere. It's pretty easy. You can make a difference every day when you give nothing to racism.
Now, I understand our judges have reached a decision, so I'll hand over to our Chief Judge, Jamie Painga from the Human Rights Commission.
Kia ora no tātou. Thank you very much for your patience, and to everyone who's viewing at home and to all the whānau who have supported our speeches today. A big thank you to you guys. You should be really proud of what your students have accomplished today. So I just want to give you a quick rundown of what is going to happen now. So I'm briefly just going to give some general feedback that applies just generically across all our speakers. And then I'm going to hand over to all the judges, and each of us are going to give individual feedback to one speaker. And so we'll go through that process. And after that, I'll then be announcing the Lower North Island champion, and then our two finalists, or our two champions who will be going through to the national finals. So in terms of the general feedback that we wanted to give to you guys, we definitely wanted to let you all know that we were very, very impressed with the way that you spoke and with your speaking abilities. We really thought that you spoke with a lot of passion, a lot of emotion. There was a lot of great storytelling, and a really good grasp of the whakatauki in terms of turning back to the past and the things that we can learn from the past. That being said, though, we did think that a lot of the speeches could have really benefited from moving beyond the past and into the future. And one thing that we would have liked to see a little bit more is what we've learned from the past and what those suggestions are for the future. And so a few times we maybe had too many ideas and too many thoughts about the past and not enough linkage or coherence into what that tells us for the future. But that being said, a lot of research was clearly put into this, and we really want to say that you did a great job of really knuckling down and giving us something really good and a lot of good things to think about. So lots of congratulations in that place. What I'm now going to do is that I'm going to pass over to Michael, and Michael's going to give some feedback to Sarah.
Kia ora, Sarah. Well done. Excellent speech. I thought it was very good, and it's always tough going first, so well done for doing that. I thought the passion you showed was really good. I thought it was really fantastic the way that you captured that, and I thought your delivery and your movement was really good. All the judges, we noticed the way that you use your stance and your posture to convey the emotion through what you were saying, and the use of some of the confronting language as well was really useful as well to capture the audience's attention and carry that through. I thought the structure of your speech was good and it was solid. You had a good theme throughout that, and you ended well. And I think that was really well done. It was a really excellent speech. I think again the use of your the body language, the way you move on stage, I guess, but the way you used the camera as well was excellent, and I think you kept the audience's attention throughout. So well done, Sarah. Excellent effort. I'll now pass over to Natasha, who's going to speak to Jess.
Aroha, can anyone hear me? Kia ora, sorry guys. Natasha's just had some technical issues, so we'll jump back to me and I'll do the feedback that she was going to do as well. So Jess, again, another wonderful speech, another great delivery that we all thought was very, very compelling. One thing that we had all discussed as judges was that we really enjoyed the rhetoric and the analogy that you used in terms of looking at your two ethnicities within yourself and really talking and depicting to us the conflict that you see both within yourself and how that can be depicted in the real world, and how race is not just complex and race is not simple and identity is quite complex. And you did a really good job of just sharing that with us and taking us through your corridor. One thing that we would like to have seen, or would like you to maybe think about in the future, is slowing down your entrance. So you had a very, very quick start, and there was lots of information and lots of corridor, and we all felt a little bit rushed at the beginning. But if you just slow it down, and your pace definitely got better throughout, that's something that we think you can work on in the future. So now it was supposed to be my turn. And so I'm going to give a little bit of feedback to Brooke. Brooke, another good strong speaker and another good use of support material and references to different kaupapa and different speakers that we were all knew and understood and had reference and understanding too. But again, and this is a bit more of the general feedback that we get, just a little bit more of a central focus or a focus on a central theme would have just helped it pull a bit together. There were parts that we thought you sort of delivered an idea and a theme and then maybe didn't wrap it up or bring it back around to your next theme before moving on. But in general, yeah, very good speaker, good tone, and good pace. Cool. So I will hand back to Michael to do some feedback for Frederick.
Kia ora, Frederick. Well done. Excellent speech. I think you start off with some really interesting concepts, actually. I thought that was quite interesting in terms of using the connection to your name in the past, and I think it really been quite interesting to see you take that further and sort of make that a theme throughout. I thought that was really, really interesting. Good start there. I thought your use of humour at the start was quite good. Would have been quite good to see more of that throughout the speech. I think you've got quite a dry sense of humour, so that would have been quite interesting to see throughout. I thought you sort of brought in some currency ideas relation it to COVID-19 as well, just bringing in some of the past and also bringing it into the future was really useful. I thought it was interesting in terms of some of the aspects around sort of military history, and I think be interesting to know a bit more, if you could dig more about what, in terms of the Māori Battalion, in terms of expanding that, in terms of what actually happened when the men came back, in terms of the issues around racism and issues looking for the future and implications of that. I think there could be some interest in there in terms of your speech, but all up, excellent effort. Well done, Frederick. I've lost count who's going to be doing it next. I think it might be Natasha and talking to Olivia. Sounds like it's you again, Jamie, is it?
Me again. Sorry, guys. I was hoping that you didn't have to listen to my voice this whole time. So, Olivia, the feedback that the judges have for you is that we really liked the focus that you had on the topics and your use of personal examples and really personifying and your speech and making it really relevant and talking about the examples that you use was your teachers and people that you knew. That was really nice. It was really inviting to be able to have a look into your world. And so I really enjoyed listening to that, as well as I thought your storytelling was really, really great. What we would have liked to see in a bit more is, and it's a little bit hard to get the balance right, but is maybe using some evidence from other types of speakers. So some of the other speakers were talking about Martin Luther King and other different type of rangatira. That might have been pushed your rhetoric a little bit further if you'd sort of given us some people that we could also know. So it was really nice to get to know you and the people in your world, but it would have been nice if we had a little bit of a better linkage to some examples that we could follow along with and we could understand as well. So I see that Tash is here. So I'm going to hopefully pass over to her to give some feedback to Lucia.
Kia ora, Lucia. Gosh, I've had quite the trouble. This Zoom is taking on its life of its own. Lucia, I just want to, I can't even see you here, so I'm going to, there you are. Fantastic speech. Thank you for the efforts that you put in there. Specifically, I wanted to say a really strong opening. And that was something that immediately grabbed our attention as judges and would have with the audience as well. You know, and using the reo and then made that accessible to everybody watching. So congratulations on that start and a really powerful way to start. In terms of your personal story, your family story, that was also wonderfully woven in. The picture of your koro, really brought that connection in, and I think immediately grabbed people. Your knowledge of the battalion and the issues around the price of citizenship, weaving that kōrero in, brought our history really into stark contrast, which was, I think, of the experience, and that was really valuable. I probably personally have a koro who've served in the Māori Battalion as well, so I was particularly, you know, taken by that aspect of your speech. But I think you brought us all on this journey, and what I would have liked to have seen is, I really loved the personalization of it, but I would have liked to have seen what you personally thought were the strategies for us in this country to move forward from the past. So I thought you took us brilliantly through the past, but it was the forward thinking that was there, and you started to get to it at the end when you were talking about what your mum was doing, and I loved the concept of a letter to your koro. I just think you're going to go on to do so many other things that you could have included in that letter that would be strategies for the future, and I think that would have really been kind of the icing on the cake for your speech, but a really good kōrero. Thank you.
Right, so I'm going to provide some feedback for Henna. Henna, I think it was a really excellent.
Sorry, Jamie, am I supposed to be doing?
Sorry? No. Henna, so I thought this was a really excellent speech again. I think it was a high standard throughout the night, but Henna, I thought yours was excellent in terms of you really brought home in terms of providing some possible solutions for the future. I thought some really great ideas that you explored through your speech. I like the clear motifs you had throughout with the music theme, and also looking at sort of the aspect of how people's brains are wired, and sort of how do we combat the negativity and observations of modern life, really forgetting to look to the past, but actually the past can bring through the looking at the culture and reminding us what's really important. You actually did some really good work in terms of having a personal experience to start off and then carry it through. I thought that was really good. And then coming out with some of the ideas of, you know, the increased visibility of local politicians and sort of race relations classes in schools and those sorts of things, but not forgetting that theme of humanity, which you, along with the theme of music, I think you tied those two together quite well. So I thought it was an excellent, excellent speech. Handing back to you. Thank you, Jamie.
Thanks, guys. I hope that feedback was really helpful for everyone, and not just, you know, the individual feedback that we gave to the individual speakers, but hopefully the general feedback and some of the themes that we were talking about throughout that feedback. So without further ado, the next thing that I'm going to be doing is announcing who the winner of the North Island, what I'm going to be announcing is the Lower North Island Regional Champion. And so we had two speakers who were going for that prize tonight. And tonight's winner, this year's Lower North Island Regional Champion, is Jess Jenkins.
Thank you. Kia ora.
Kia ora, Jess. And now the two students who will be advancing to the national finals are both Jess Jenkins and Lucia Bernards.
That's good.
Thank you.
Lucia.
Congratulations to Jess and Lucia. You will both be presenting your speeches at the national final occurring on Sunday, the 17th of May at 10 a.m. to 1:30 p.m. That will be live streamed on YouTube and Facebook. And congratulations to Jess for being our North Island Regional Champion. But well done to all the students. You all made it to the national semi-final, so you should all be very proud of yourselves. All of the speeches that we've heard tonight have the power to help move Aotearoa forward, and they all deserve to be heard. So I'd encourage you all to call your friends, call your whānau if you haven't already, and share your speeches to them. And later on, when schools go back to normal, I'd strongly encourage you to perform your speech at a school assembly, and we'd love to hear from you if you do so. It's definitely not an easy task to write a speech, practice it, and then present it especially online and in the middle of a pandemic. So that's another reason why you should all be very proud of yourselves. It's nice to think of race unity as a waka, that we're all paddling together, and you are all playing your part, so we thank you for that. As we near the end of the evening, just a reminder that the Speech Awards are held in support of Race Relations Day and Youth Week. And one thing that each of us can take away from this evening is to start thinking about how we can foster positive race relations in our own communities. So I want to thank all the speakers for inspiring us, their support people from school and at home, our judges, Jamie, Michael, and Natasha, our timekeeper, Paloma, and the national team who have been doing so much behind the scenes. A special thank you to the New Zealand Police and to all of our other sponsors and supporters, and to everybody else who helped make tonight possible. That draws the first semi-final to a close. Feel free to tune in tomorrow evening to support the youth taking part in the second semi-final, and on Wednesday evening to support those taking part in the third. Thank you for watching.